Chapter 1 Awaken. I was looking at a glistening book on the table, a skill book, albeit a very low-ranked one at that. Fireball, an F-ranked spell that only the most unfortunate beginners start with. But this skill book took a majority of my remaining inheritance and all of my savings. I was known to be a fairly smart guy before everything went to shit, so I planned ahead before spending most of my money. In the worst-case scenario, I still have enough funds to last me at least a few months. In the best-case scenario, as planned, I would consume this skill book and hope for a semi-decent talent when I awaken. Getting this skill book was not easy, but it was the only way to awaken if you did not awaken naturally. The rich had no problem awakening themselves, their children, and their children's children. I look at the skill book again before stealing my resolve and picking it up. Bringing it close to my chest, I close my eyes. A few seconds pass before I see a flash of light, even though my eyes are closed. Opening them, the book in my hands had disappeared, and at the corner of my eyes something else had appeared. Noah. Focus. Strength. Shining with blue light, the words brought confusion more than relief to me. Where the hell were the numbers for focus? From the released knowledge, ever since the apocalyptic event that killed more than 1 billion people occurred, a new magical world took its place. People that are termed as awakened appeared, and others could also become awakened through learning. Skill book that can be dropped from killed monsters. Yes, monsters. Magical beings that most commonly reside in dungeons and occasionally come out whenever a dungeon break occurs. Since more than a year has passed, it became common knowledge that those who are awakened are able to use skills, whether inherently gained or from skill books, to perform amazing feats and vanquish monsters. These awakened beings can increase their strength by killing more monsters and absorbing the life cores they drop, which add to the 3 attributes: vitality, focus, and strength. Sigh. So why the fuck is my focus empty? I try not to become depressed as I feel my body change somewhat after I awakened. I seem to have become slightly stronger and can instinctively cast the skill I just learned. The problem is, can I even cast skills if I don't have any focus? Why the hell is there no number though? My exhilaration of awakening was slowly fading away as I couldn't figure out the numbers, or lack of thereof, on the blue screen in front of me. Looking back, nothing like this seems to come to mind from the news and everything I have been paying close attention to. Sigh, I'll have to figure it out as I go, and strength are average, and focus, what is required to cast skills and increase the damage you do, is black. Can I even cast Fireball if I don't even know how much focus I have? Usually, most average awakenees can cast F-tier skills 5 times before they completely deplete the energy in their body. The larger your focus, the higher tier the skills you can cast, and the more times you can cast them. Since awakened mages are extremely powerful, focus cores are much more in demand than vitality cores and strength cores. Awakened mages can shoot their skills at a long distance and not even give the monsters a chance to retaliate, while awakened berserkers and awakened knights have to get up close to fight. I was hoping to awaken to become a mage. Sigh without wallowing in melancholic thoughts anymore. I try the last Hail Mary I can, actually casting the skill I just learned, lol, a common F-rank skill that many F-ranked awakened have. I step out of my small apartment and head to an empty barren field behind the apartment complex. Rent had become increasingly more expensive nowadays, as buildings that had high security, where you won't suddenly lose your life, were high-priced. I had to move quite a distance to get to the barren field before I could begin testing my first skill, and possibly my last. Hyping myself up, I raise my hand in front of me and call out, "Fireball!" A small ball of flames came to light in front of me, much to my shock and disbelief. Along with the shock came exhilaration. I can still cast skills even though my focus bar doesn't show anything? Putting my shock aside, I command the fireball to move forward before it exploded a few meters from me. Wanting to test to see if I can at least cast the average 5 fireballs that normal F-ranked awakened can cast, I keep on going, fireball, fireball, fireball. 3 more fireballs were shot and exploded in front of me, increasing the shock and happiness in my heart. At least I have average skills, even if it doesn't show on the stat panel. Weirdly enough, I did not feel any less energy in my body. Well, my focus was blank to begin with, so I didn't really feel much. I focus once more as I cast what is probably my last fireball, until I rest for a while before I can cast again. The fifth fireball flew out and exploded just like the ones before. With a smile on my face, I wiped the perspiration on my forehead while feeling relieved. Being average is not bad, at least with this. I can count myself among the top of many people in the world today. I was still confused on the fact that no numbers were showing on my focus though, which meant I couldn't get a gauge on just how much energy I had and how many times I could cast my skill. I hesitantly raised my hand again to see just how many times I could cast Fireball. The more times I cast the skill and more fireballs flew and exploded in front of me, the more shocked I became. Fireball. The shock soon turned into incredulousness, as I had counted more than 50 fireballs flying from me and exploding. This 10 times the normal amount of energy an average F rank has. I try to breathe to calm myself down. 10 times. That means my energy nears rank D awakened. That was extremely rare, as long distance awakened with skills like fireballs can easily take down an F rank monster, and 3 to 4 fireballs or equivalent skills can take care of E rank monsters. D-ranked awakened individuals also triumph over D-ranked monsters fairly easily with good usage of their skills. Am I actually one of the talented Awakenese? I try to push down the pride that began rising before calling out another fireball, because I still didn't feel like I was out of energy. This both scared me and made me extremely hopeful in the future. When I kept casting the skill, I didn't really feel any energy leaving, nor did I feel exhausted. When I reached 100 casts, my shock increased. When it reached 300, my head was pounding from this unknown situation. When it reached 500 casts, my whole body shook. I breathed heavily before looking around me. I was fairly deep into the barren field and had the cover of trees behind me. Glancing around and making sure there was nobody around me, I rushed back to my apartment to try and calm my nearly exploding heart 500 times. I had cast an F-rank skill, and I didn't feel any exhaustion. What exactly was going on? Chapter 2. Hunter License. As soon as I was back in my apartment, I took deep breaths and analyzed everything that had happened so far. No numbers were showing for my focus, something I have never heard about before. Yet, I could still cast skills that require focus. I did not feel any exhaustion while casting F-ranked skill over 500 times. My goodness. Taking another deep breath, I continued thinking core. The most important question now is, do I just have an abnormal amount of focus that surpasses most people, or something else? This was the biggest thing on my mind, as even the strongest B-ranked awakened individuals cannot cast skills that many times without exhausting themselves. Alright, with that in mind, I need to test just how many times I can continue to cast skills before I can't anymore. Which also means I need to get my hands on higher ranked skills that consume more energy. With that in mind, a smile bloomed on my face. Just the fact that I could cast an F-ranked skill more than 500 times meant amazing things. As long as I am not brain dead, I can easily clear an F and E ranked dungeons, even if I'm alone. D ranked dungeons might be a stretch as the strength of monsters increase and I would need higher ranked skills besides Fireball to take them down. But there's no problem taking things slow. I pull out my phone and look at the remaining balance in my bank account, $5,867. Enough money for rent and food for a few months, and the remainder of my savings. I convinced myself to buy the F-ranked skill book, Fireball, for $20,000. After this, most of my inheritance money was now gone. A year ago, when the apocalypse began, my parents were not so lucky to survive. I was stuck in the basement of my old house asleep and escaped the onslaught of monsters that were taken care of by the government and newly awakened people after a few days. As time passed, more information was released to the public. Monsters had appeared. Most of them congregated in dungeons. If they were left alone, they would increase and something called dungeon break would occur. This caused monsters to leave the dungeon and indiscriminately attack everything on sight. But never fear, awakened people are here, able to use powerful skills and great strength to protect everyone else. And now, I was among those people too. The first order of business? Obtain an awakened license that will allow me to enter dungeons. Without a license, you cannot bypass the security that allows the awakened to clear dungeons. You can get a license fairly easily, as you just have to be examined and exhibit skills. I was itching to get started as soon as possible, so I grabbed my backpack and rushed downtown. With the advent of monsters and heroes, many of the populations were condensed onto a few protected cities. Almost everything was close to each other, so the Awakened Center was not too far away. A few minutes and I was already there. On the way, I saw the usual people with sullen faces and occasional awakened individuals rushing about. The Awakened Center was vibrating with life, as long lines of people visiting shops could be seen, with even more carefully selling monster cores to the authorities. Many people chose to first consume the cores and get stronger themselves, but many more also sold them to the government and other markets as they went for high prices. Vitan strength cores went for around $1,000, while focus cores were almost double that price because of their demand. I moved my eyes to another section of the center, which was dealing in the selling of skill books ranging from F to C. Obtaining a C-ranked skill book was a dream for many people, as they were extremely rare and went for more than $500,000. Looking at the skill books that I greatly desired, I shook my head and moved towards the registration hall. The receptionist was very welcoming, asking for my name, date of birth, address, and bank account information. As soon as she had everything down, I was told to head toward a certain door where my ability would be observed. There were 3 people standing behind thick glass in an open area with testing dummies. After hearing the directions, I stood a few meters from the dummies and cast Fireball consecutively 8 times, making sure to look like I was struggling to get the last few out. Wow, Judge 1. A peak F rank, huh? Drawing a few surprises from the observers behind the thick glass, everything was completed successfully and I received my license. It was a golden card similar to a credit card with my name, age, and rank. The surprise from the observers was most likely due to the fact that high-ranked awakened are extremely rare, with there being only one B-ranked awakened in this city that is known publicly for. There are a few tens of C-ranked awakened, a few hundred D ranks, and thousands of E and F ranks. Most of the hunters were F-ranked, so being at the peak of this rank at the starting point was a good thing by itself. One can slowly raise their rank by absorbing cores. But unless you were in the army, where they were provided for you by the government, or in a rich household that could buy them in mass, you would rise very slowly. There were some slight changes to the panel on the corner of my eyes as I walked out of the Awakened Center and received my license. Occupation 10. 10. Skills 10. A new occupation had appeared, marking me as an official Awakened Hunter. And, oh, I was surprised because I didn't see it before, but the proficiency of the Fireball skill had quickly risen to 8. Though it was an extremely fast process when it took people weeks to raise their proficiency with their skill. I guess it is understandable as I was able to cast the skill more than 500 times, and most people have to use their skills over a period of weeks to reach that number. My next course of action after getting my license was the nearest beginner dungeon in the city, Ape's Paradise. Boasting 10 floors, each floor held 10 to 20 monsters, with the last floor housing a huge black ape 3 meters in size. This dungeon was regularly cleared by parties of F and E ranked hunters who could take on the monsters and the boss without fear of casualties if everyone was doing their jobs. Parties consisting of 2 knights who put their focus on there, 2 berserkers with their focus on strength, and 2 mages with their focus on focus were the most common for this dungeon. The knights act as tanks to ward off coming monsters. Berserkers use their high strength to strike down and protect the mages, that are the brunt of the firepower to kill everything on sight. Equipment from dungeons was extremely rare, so most people had to make do with newly designed machetes or metal pipes and iron shields as their first equipment. Only the boss of the dungeon had a chance to drop skill books and items. Any item dropped from a dungeon was highly sought after, with their prices not being too different than the skill building. My goal today was to enter Ape's Paradise, and alone at that. My heart was pounding at this crazy idea. When the thought was forming in my head, I had to ask myself multiple times if I had gone insane, but it will not be that dangerous. Seeing how I can cast my skills so many times without feeling any fatigue, the rank of my focus, even though I can't even see it for some reason, should be nearing B, if not A. And any rank B hunter can easily clear rank F and E dungeons, though they don't care to, and put their focus on higher ranked dungeons. Now, with me being the only F-ranked hunter entering and clearing this dungeon, my heart was pounding from the possible rewards. Usually, rewards are split between the many members of the party, but I would keep all the cores and possible skill books and items that drop. Just the thought of it made my heart excited. I steeled my resolve and heading towards Ape's Paradise. Chapter 3: Ape's Paradise. A huge monolith structure was surrounded by high walls. There was security at the entrance and heavily armed soldiers on the walls. Even though this was only an F-ranked dungeon, it made up for millions of dollars of revenue every day, with a large number of people entering, clearing the monsters, and selling the resources they receive inside. This monolith had a blue color, indicating it was a normal dungeon with little danger of a dungeon break. If the color changed to orange and then to red, it meant a dungeon break was imminent. Regularly clearing the dungeon kept the color at blue, turning it into a treasure trove with capable people farming it. You always had casualties every now and then from hunters that were either too full of themselves, bad teammates, or just plain unlucky. Now, I sincerely hope I don't make myself on the category of being too full of myself. Gathering my wits, I show the guards at the metal entrance of the enclosure my hunter ID before heading in. Inside the walls, there were a few hunter teams getting their gear in order or just talking. A few people were standing around looking to either form parties or invite others to their party. At the center of the blue monolith, there was a square, door-like structure. This door-like structure was how you entered the dungeon. Those in a group would have to touch the door with a few second differences, but under a minute to be transferred to the first floor of the dungeon together. There was a party prepared to go into the dungeon in front of me already, so I reined in my curiosity about the other hunters around me and stood a few feet away from the incoming party. It didn't take long before a few hunters noticed a lone man waiting by himself. Oi, is that kid, thinking of going in alone? Hunter bro, another one with a death wish. Hunter B, just ignore him. Who knows, maybe he's one of those prodigies that can solo an F-ranked dungeon? Haha, Hunter C. Ignoring the laughs around me, I wait patiently as the entire party in front of me disappeared in a flash, and waited the required minute before going forward and placing my hand on the square door. In an instant, I was transported into a large cavern where I had just caught the attention of two 1-meter-tall black apes. I brought myself to full attention and observed both the apes and my surroundings before I began my first dungeon hunt. A single fireball and then a second and a third and a fourth quickly flew towards the two apes. When the ball of fire exploded on their faces, they were already incapacitated and letting out dying screeches. They would not survive after that, and a second fireball hit them at the same location, quickly finishing them off. I breathed heavily as I felt the adrenaline course through my body. Two F-ranked monsters, easily taken care of by me. Haha! This was a feeling I could get used to. Usually, F-rank hunters would use their skills sparingly, making sure to cast them all either on the boss or on emergencies. I did not have such reservations. I went towards where the apes fell and grabbed a glistening strength cord that dropped. It was small in size, smaller than a pigeon's egg, and yet they went for $1,000 on the market. I placed the core into my backpack and ventured farther in. I didn't have to walk far, as three apes were quickly rushing towards me, screeching after hearing the death screams of their brethren. With a thought, fireball was cast one after another, each not missing its targets that were rushing forward. Another hot dropped from these three. Cores were not guaranteed to drop every time a monster died, and getting 2 from 5 monsters was already fairly average. Placing the newly acquired cores in the bag, I rushed down the path of the cavern, meeting another set of 5 apes that I quickly burned. I had to force myself to calm down as I so easily and quickly took down the monsters and collected cores. I never imagined myself being able to do something like this and had to pinch myself a few times just to make sure it wasn't a dream. Forcing myself to remain calmer, I cleared the first floor quickly and headed down the winding steps to the second floor. The apes came in batches of 3 to 5 and just ran towards me when I neared. I didn't let them get any closer than 4 meters from me, hurling balls of fire towards them as soon as they were in my sight. And just like that, an incredulous sight occurred in the F-rank dungeon, Paradise. Without a moment of rest, an F-ranked hunter cleared the second floor and the third and the fifth, all the way to the end of the 9th floor with ease. Wah! I lost control of my emotions as I let out a triumphant shout before the boss room. I had never imagined something like this to be possible. Without a single issue, I had effectively taken down groups of apes, collected multiple cores, and reached the boss room all by myself. I reeled my emotions in as I let out a confident smile and went further down to the boss room. A huge ape awaits me in the circular cave that is the last room. Roar! The cave lightly shakes from the scream. My smile does not leave my face as 5 fireballs fly towards the ape that is now charging towards me. The first hit its chest, stopping it on its tracks. The second and third smash its shoulders, knocking it backward. The fourth and fifth explode on either side of its head, effectively finishing it off. As soon as the ape crashed down, a blinding light flashed in the last floor. A green crystal rose in the middle. Touching this crystal will allow you to leave the room and appear at a random location near the entrance of the dungeon. I slowly revel in my first ever completed dungeon hunt, a solo one at that. I then go towards the now dead ape to see any possible drops. By its side, a few F-rank cores are present. Along with a skill book, I grab the cores and put them inside the bag before reaching out for the skill book. Minor Hell was now in my hands, giving me quite a shock. It wasn't the rarest of F-rank skill books, but it was one of the more expensive ones, as it easily took care of any cuts and minor injuries. I also placed the skill inside the bag and proceeded to sit down and think while staring at the green crystal in front of me. The problem at hand is how I should handle myself from now on. An F-rank newly awakened hunter clearing an F-rank dungeon in under 30 minutes was unbelievable. It would have to be someone who was B-ranked or above to be able to carry out the same thing. I made sure not to show too much of what I could do when I took the licensing exam, because currently, all I have going for me is the fact that I seem to have a large pool of energy to cast skills. This does not mean I am powerful, nor do I hold the power of someone ranked B or higher. Even a rank D or C could easily sneak behind me and take me out as long as they're faster than me. So my plan was to stay low-key until I could buy more skills, preferably higher-ranking ones that would match my large energy reserves. Sigh, and that required money. Another plan was forming in my head, though. Looking over at the gains just from clearing Ape's Paradise once, I had in total 1 F-rank skill book and 40-plus cores from the more than 160 apes I had killed from the 9 floors before. This alone made me bolder to make some accelerated plans. Just from one dungeon run alone, I can make more than $60,000 in under 30 minutes. This alone gave me a great shock. Normal parties would have to split the loot, and it would take them more than 2 hours of intensely fighting monsters in close combat, which brought them exhaustion and made many parties recuperate for a few hours after each dungeon run. Most parties would go into the dungeon once or twice a day. With each person making around $10,000, the life of a hunter can be considered very luxurious. So assuming the boss drops either a skill book or possibly an item, I can make around 60 grand each run. This made many ideas dance around in my head wildly. I've already spent many months observing hunters and researching every knowledge available to the public about them. I've researched even more into all the known skill books and items that can be dropped from boss rooms. For someone with a large energy pool like me, I already had a few books in mind that would work very well. Of course, I also have to keep on testing just how much focus I really have. A wild thought keeps appearing in my head that I do not want to entertain as it is too grand. The possibility that because my focus appears blank, and I can repeatedly continue to cast skills with no feeling of exhaustion, could mean that I can simply keep on casting skills as much as I want. Boom, it felt like something had exploded in my head as this idea came and my mind entertained it more and more. My heart was also beating fast that this could even be a possibility. But why not? From what I've seen so far, there is no value for my focus action. Is it more logical to think that it is just a really high number that I somehow cannot see? Or that because it is blank and I can still cast skills, I can simply continue to cast skills without any problem of depleting something? I took a deep breath to calm my nerves before I came to terms with the new plan. It was somewhat risky, but it will be fast and reduce any possible future problems, whether it be from monsters or hunters. The world after the apocalypse was vastly different, but still the same, now even more filled with dangers and deaths. A hunter could easily be killed by monsters, robbed by other hunters, or killed by the government if they do not fall in line. To secure my safety while rising up, I will need a highly defensive and offensive skill, as well as a speed supporting skill. Something of C rank or above would be highly effective, and yet the cheapest C rank skills start off at $500,000. So, how do I go about this? Chapter 4, is that a rookie? Or an idea solidly formed in my head and took root. I knew what I had to do. I didn't want to cause too huge of a commotion, so even though I will have to go in a roundabout way, I can still keep on diving into dungeons today. The plan was to head to another dungeon after leaving Ape's Paradise. As much as I wanted to enter the dungeon again, I know I would easily be recognized the moment I head towards the entrance again. I won't repeatedly dive into dungeons with such a fast, clear speed until I have some measure of confidence to be able to protect myself from most threats. The goal for now is power close to or equivalent to rank B. There was a single B rank hunter in this city, and he was a known celebrity. The strength he showed made many people fearful, as even bullets and snipers were ineffective against someone of rank B. The city I'm in, though, Outer Bank X, was only a small-sized city with a few dungeons, the highest rank being C. Other cities that are further inland have way more powerful hunters with even greater level dungeons. My next stop will be at the rank E dungeon, Frozen Wasteland, which many hunters do not frequent. With the extremely cold characteristics, this dungeon held 20 floors, with various beasts of cold attributes appearing. It should be even easier to clear with my constant casting of Fireball. Before I head to the Frozen Wasteland, though, I do want to continue testing just how many more times I can cast my soul skill at the moment. From the previous 500 times, I've cast it 200 plus times while clearing this dungeon. Wrapping my thoughts up, I moved a distance away from the green crystal and began my experimentation of whether I could endlessly cast skills or if I just had an abnormal amount of focus that I could not see. Thus, a weird scene unfolded on the last floor of Ape's Paradise, with a man all by himself continuously casting fireballs. They exploded a few meters from me, and more followed right after 20 minutes passed. I was still casting fireball without stopping, causing my wildly beating heart to be leaning towards that insane idea. Approximately over 1,000 casts in the last 20 minutes. Let's continue some more 40 minutes later. I had gone past the excitement, ran over fear, got over the whole ridiculous idea, and taken it as a fact. This was something out of my wildest dreams, and I did not even understand how it could be possible. In the last hour, I had cast an F-rank skill, Fireball, over 3,000 times. Not even someone of rank A, or the highest known ranking hunter, Steel McHale, would be able to do something like this. This both scared me and gave me a wild hope to someday stand up not far from them. Over the span of the time, the balls of fire that came out gradually became more condensed, and their explosions more pronounced as well as traveling much faster. In the last 10 minutes, instead of usually casting one fireball every second, 2 rushed out per second. They were apparently becoming smaller, faster, and more explosive as I continued to cast them. This should be my proficiency rising at a stupid crazy rate, because of how many times I am casting the skill. My current panel looked like this: Vitality 10, Focus, Strength Skills, Fireball. The proficiency for the skill Fireball had amazingly risen all the way to 59, a crazy figure to wrap my head around. As far as I knew, there were very few people who had their proficiency higher than 30, as hunters continuously improved themselves and got higher ranking skills with the passing of time. An F-rank hunter, using Fireball as their first skill, would move on to using an E-ranking skill as soon as they gained the funds to buy one. No one spent that much time using one of the lowest ranking skills for an extended period of time. Looking at the high proficiency, it made me excited about what would happen if I continue to cast and raise it even more. The power of the Fireball skill should currently surpass any other skills of the next rank in the damage and speed that it flies at. It's most likely nearing rank D in its offensive ability. I was itching to continue my test of endless casting, but brought myself to stop and move on to the plans on my agenda. I moved towards the still glowing green crystal in the middle of the room and placed my hand on it, which instantly teleported me outside the monolith. I appeared not too far from the entrance, with a few people glancing my way with surprised expressions. Did his entire team wipe, or do we have a ranker here? Hunter F. Ha! A ranker? Have you ever seen them dressed like that with a flimsy backpack on them? My apologies, kid. I hope they weren't your closest friends. Hunter GA. Few people noticed the abnormalities as someone finished the dungeon and was transported out alone. My current attire really did not match anyone of rank C or higher, as many people quickly noticed. Most of the people that were there an hour and a half ago when I went in the dungeon were either gone or not paying attention, as the surrounding compound of the dungeon was a fairly large space. I ignored the pitying gazes of hunters who thought the rest of my team was gone and headed towards the gate. Funny enough, I was becoming more and more used of ignoring other people's gazes as this day went on. Outside the gate, there were a few stalls and people rushing about. I went towards another section where there were a few cars lined up and planned to use the hunter ride system. There were many people making their living driving hunters from dungeons to the Awakened Center or to their lodging. It was a very dangerous job, as you can always have an unstable customer, but this time, they're superpowered people who could either blow you up or snap your neck with a twist of their hands. One man quickly came up to me with a smiling expression and asked if I needed a ride. I nodded and quickly got on the parked Dodge Charger in front of me, our destination, the frozen wasteland. In the 25-minute trip towards the next dungeon, I kept on thinking of any things that I missed and went over my plans for the next few days. Time quickly passed and we neared another huge monolith, this one with a slight tinge of orange. Many hunters did not like clearing this dungeon because of the extreme cold, resulting in mandatory cleanup by the government and team. I would take my time in this dungeon though, as there were significantly fewer hunters, and even a single run would probably net me more than double the money I made in Ape's Paradise. I paid the high fare and got out of the car, flashing my hunter license to the guards at the door, who didn't bother with me after giving me a second look and shaking their heads. Hey, I promise you I'm not just a hunter on a suicide mission. Alright, I look around the enclosure of this dungeon and head towards the entrance. There wasn't even a team on standby to be entering, with a few hunters clustered on some stalls and shops selling food and equipment. Nothing held me back as I quickly went to the entrance and placed my hand on one of the square doors, which quickly transported me to the first floor of the Rank E dungeon. I was quickly besieged by the cold that drove many hunters away, and quickly cast 2 fireballs that did not fly away from me this time, but circled around me. Doing this usually required hunters to continuously provide more energy, but nothing like that could be felt from me. As soon as I commanded the fireballs to circle a few feet away from me, the cold was majorly offset and nowhere near where it was before. There wasn't a pause to be given though, as I soon heard the growling of animals that quickly showed themselves. Clear white wolves were rushing towards me, their glistening white teeth flashing menacingly in the white wasteland. There wasn't a single hint of fear in me, though, as I moved forward confidently. Condensed fireballs were quickly rushing from me at high speeds, exploding on the wolves' bodies and blowing masses of meat away. The group was quickly taken care of in the first volley of fireballs, and all that was left for me was to pick up the core that dropped. I looked forward to the misty, cold path in front of me as I rushed down this 20-floor dungeon that would be the beginning of my journey. Chapter 5. How many fireballs to take down a huge polar bear? In the first 5 floors of the frozen wasteland, packs of white wolves appeared. With the fast velocity of the ever-so-damaging fireballs, they were mowed down quickly. Aside from casting the skill towards the enemies that appeared, I had a few of them rotating around me and randomly cast the skill even more as I moved forward, even if there were no enemies near me. I wanted to increase the proficiency of Fireball as fast as possible. I could only imagine what these monsters felt, as they would hear sounds of an explosion that quickly pulled them toward me before they met a grisly fate. Killing all of these monsters did not have that much of an effect on me. I was looking at them like the mere monsters that they were. They would not hesitate a second to rip my head off if I gave them the chance. Not to mention the hatred that everyone has against monsters for all the massacres on the early stage of the apocalypse. The first 5 floors were quickly cleared, and from the 6th floor, monsters with a similar shape to foxes began appearing. These ones much bigger than the wolves before them. Their size surprisingly did not make them any slower, and they were rushing towards me while ferociously growling. The further condensed were shooting out from me without stopping. I was doing my best to adjust to the ever-so-increasing speed while aiming for their heads and limbs. As soon as there was an impact, an explosion followed, and chunks of meat flew. The Arctic foxes were then taken down just as easily as the wolves. This continued until the 15th floor, where huge muskox were. They looked like huge bisons, but with a lot more fur. I stopped aiming at their limbs, as it seemed their thick coating provided some protection for them, and focused on throwing the fireballs underneath their heads. At the speed they were rushing towards me, I actually had to move back to avoid being rammed into whenever I ran into a group of 4 or 5 muskox sacks. They required more fireballs to be taken down, and if there were many of them, then at least one would be able to get within a few meters. This pushed down my ever-so-increasing confidence a bit, making me slow down and stop my incessant casting that caused explosive sounds that alerted the monsters when I neared its head. As soon as I met another group, I cast as many fireballs as I could and kept them around me without losing my focus, before bombarding the group when I neared. Just like that, I smoothly cleared all the way until the 20th floor, which held crystal glass stairs heading downwards. I took a deep breath and prepared myself, casting the maximum fireballs I could keep circling me before I lost control and they exploded, which was about 10. Any more than that, and I would lose concentration of a few that would fly away and explode. I went down the stairs and was met with a wide cave that had cold winds rushing about. At the center was a huge slumbering mass of a beast. As soon as I stepped in, 2 bright shining eyes opened, giving me a shock. This was the first ever monster that actually made me feel somewhat suffocated, mostly due to its size. I didn't waste any more time before commanding the fireballs around me to rush towards the huge beast, which was now standing on its hind legs. Damn! All 10 fireballs rushed towards it, with a few more appearing around me a few seconds after. The beast that seemed like a huge polar bear crossed its thick arms around its face as the fireballs came, and a huge explosion occurred. Boom! Dust filled the room, but I didn't even bother waiting and checking if it was still alive or not, before I threw the next 10 fireballs in the same direction. Whoosh! I let out a scream as I quickly moved back. The bear was not dead and had rushed a few meters close to me. Its arms mangled and burnt, but its huge jaws with pristine white teeth wide open. The last 10 fireballs I had haphazardly thrown out saved my life, as they quickly exploded on the open jaws of the bear and blasted its head off. Damn! 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 I was breathing heavily while calming myself down. That was close. If I had waited a single second, if I was just a tad bit more overconfident, I would have had my head chewed right off. Damn it! Throwing those last fireballs without checking for anything just saved my life. I stumbled down and reeled my emotions in as the dust cleared and the room returned to serenity. I closed my eyes as the events in the last few minutes played in my head. I was rushing things. I only had one F-rank skill, and I alone attacked an E-rank dungeon. Stupid. It doesn't matter that I can cast it repeatedly if it cannot quickly take down huge bosses like this. Even with the increased proficiency of Fireball, it wasn't enough for me to comfortably take down a rank E-boss. I also did not absorb any of the cores I had collected so far because I planned on selling all of them to quickly buy a higher tier skill book. Also stupid. If I absorbed some offs, my muscles would be reinforced and I would be stronger and quicker. If I absorbed more vitality cores, my defenses and health would be further increased so that a single attack won't kill me. I took a deep breath as these ideas flowed in. Okay, no need to rush. Plan ahead carefully first. My original plan was to dive into these dungeons repeatedly today until I gained enough money to purchase a C-rank skill, but that might not be the smartest of ideas. I would need to repeat Frozen Wasteland at least 3 or 4 times alone if I wanted to collect funds nearing $500,000. Ape's Paradise alone had given me materials worth around $60,000, and I had gained close to a double that amount here, with 100 cores in the last 20 floors of this dungeon. A new plan quickly formed, and I stood up to check what the boss had dropped: one skill book and a few rank E cores that were slightly bigger than a pigeon's egg. The skill book I picked up was called Arctic Armor. Happiness quickly came to my face as this was one of the categories of skills I was planning to buy. Skills like these greatly complement the current me, as some armor skills are timed and some stay as long as you provide the energy. Tanks usually cast this skill when fighting against bosses, granting them another layer of increased protection. If the tank doesn't have a high enough focus though, he might run out of energy for the armor and quickly be taken out, so his team members had to act fast to kill the boss. Would stay active as long as you provided the energy for the skill. I wasted no time learning it and quickly activating it. A thin crystal layer of ice quickly formed all over my body, giving me a cooling feeling. Almost all of the cold winds that were rushing about in the cave seemed like a breeze to me. Wow, I was already in love with this new skill. As usual, I didn't feel like I was using any energy or depleting anything from my body as the skill was actively on. A confident smile quickly came back to my face as I collected the rest of the cores and placed in my now heavy backpack. I turned to the green crystal that rose after the huge bear's death, deactivated Arctic Armor, and touched the crystal. It was already night outside, the cold air emanating from the frozen wasteland monolith increasing some more. I passed by the few people that were there and went towards the roads where many cars were parked. Someone quickly approached me, and I got in the car, my destination now being the popular Hunter Lodging at the center of Outer Bangkok City. Many hunters did not have a permanent resident they stayed at as they moved around a lot, so luxurious hotel businesses were started that were specifically for hunters. Most paid to stay there by the day, as the cost was nowhere near what most hunters made from killing monsters day in and day out. Almost getting my head bitten off woke me up somewhat, even though I thought I was thinking very clearly when I was planning everything. I was calling it a day for now. I'll sort through the cores that dropped and see how much money I can make by selling them, and how many I should absorb myself. We quickly arrived at the hunter lodging called Pristine Residency. I paid the fare and went towards the entrance of the hotel. I would go back to my little apartment some other day to grab my valuables. Now I just needed some rest. The Pristine Residency had a luxurious look with shining lights all around it. Being a hunter lodging, there were many services for hunters that were offered. Beside the extravagant dining with specially cooked monster meat, small shops that sold and bought skill books, items, and cores were also here, although they wouldn't be anywhere near as extensive as the shops in the Awakened Centers. Selling your items at Awakened Centers would usually get you more profit, and you would be able to find rarer skills there. Places like the Pristine Residency were more of a business, while Awakened Centers were under the government's wing. and the government never stopped buying all the items dropping from monsters in bulk. I went to the reception area where a crazily dolled-up woman was flashing the sweetest smile and presented my hunter license. The smile never left her face as she quickly processed a room for me and gave me the key card. I didn't bother checking any of the shops in the huge building and went straight to the room, which was on the 10th floor. All I wanted to do right now was lie down on a soft bed. Chapter 6, Choosing New Skills. The room of the pristine residency was fairly huge. Hunters preferred resting in these specially made lodgings because of the safety that was guaranteed. Nobody wanted to be the rich and renowned hunter that was killed in their sleep. There was a platter of fresh fruits on the side and a thick bed in the middle of the room. I sat down on the bed and emptied the cores in my backpack to get a grasp of just how much funds I could get tomorrow. There were 38 focus, 54 strength, and 48 vitality cores, mixtures of F and E rank. This many cores were only possible if you were a very high ranker, soloing lower dungeons, or from partying with others of the same caliber to attack high-ranking dungeons. Just the cores alone would probably net me a grand total of $180,000, were I to sell all of them. I wouldn't be able to even come close to purchasing a rank C skill, but I could probably get one rank D skill or 2 rank E skills. If I choose to sell the minor heal I got from the boss of Ape's Paradise, that's another $20,000 to $30,000. But I was keener on learning that skill myself after the fight with that bear. I was absent-minded as I looked at the cores in front of me. Doing something like this was always a wish of mine, but never in my wildest dreams had I thought it would ever become a reality. My mind quickly went back to the period of confusion when monsters were first introduced to the world. The last thing I remember saying to my parents was, "You guys have fun." They were going to their anniversary date, finally some time away from their son who hadn't yet left the house. Those were the last words. Tears unconsciously fell from my eyes as my mind went back to that time. I remember the rage I felt, the powerlessness as I hid in the vast ambient, away from the screams and growls that were clearly heard as if they were next to me. All I did was clutch my phone and watch the news updates as it went from monsters had appeared to advice for the people to hide in their homes to superpowered humans and the military stepping in. I hid in that vast ambient for 2 straight days before I even had the courage to go upstairs and eat something. The weeks that followed were just confirmation of many people who did not have their loved ones returned to them. I was scared and ashamed at that time. My parents, who had done everything for me, were massacred by monsters while I cowered in fear. Time after that seemed to pass by in a blur. With the money my parents left behind, I was able to live off of it comfortably. It took months before I began to direct the rage and helplessness towards the things that did this, but I still wasn't able to do anything about it. The months after that, I spent learning every little thing I could about monsters, dungeons, awakened hunters, and the reality of our new world. Only today did I learn a skill book and awaken myself. I wiped the tears off my face as a resolute expression came back. I couldn't do anything then, but I can change what I do now. I set aside some F-rank and strength cores for me to absorb and grabbed the phone near the bed to order room service. I then learned the minor heal skill and tried the skill for the first time before. A green light washed over my body, reducing some of the fatigue I felt. I also made Arctic armor to be active at the same time, as its proficiency would increase the longer it was used, and its defensive properties would further increase. I then began absorbing some of the cores I set aside. My food arrived not too long after, 2 plates of prime ribs with some water. I paused everything when I grabbed the food from the door and ate the steaks waiting for me. I turned on the TV while eating to check if there was anything newsworthy that happened today. There was a bearded anchor in a suit talking to a celebrity hunter. "Mr. Doyle, you've just come back overseas from doing hero work over in Country Z of the United Federation. Just how differently do the hunters live there compared to our great blessed empire?" News anchor: "Haha, the work was fun, but it was definitely a new environment. Things are done very differently there. Dungeon diving is very strictly regulated. with hunters having to mandatorily hand over more than half of their earnings over to the government. It was truly eye-opening to see. Celebrity hunter. My goodness, how can hunters live under such oppression? I would rebel. It is nothing like our great empire, where hunters are given the freedom to grow and prosper. It's why we have such amazing heroes rising up over the years. God bless this great nation of ours. News anchor. Well, celebrity hunter. I quickly turned the TV back off while shaking my head. Nothing noteworthy seems to be going on, just the usual propaganda being hurled at the common news watcher. The blessed empire, are we truly blessed? Compared to the United Federation, hunters here have a much higher death rate. The occasional dungeon breaks also cause mass casualties, as response times were usually slow. Though I'm definitely lucky to be where I am, over the years I've to be skeptical of many of the things I hear. Hunters from the United Federation lead vastly different lives, but from what I've seen in online forums, they're happy with the way things work. Of course, there are still many issues, but nowhere near as horrid as all our news networks make it out to be. Even the good things you see online could also be a false depiction though. So, I guess I'd have to visit there myself to see how things are in the future. As soon as I finished eating my food and absorbing about 40 cores, I went towards the bed to get some rest. Before sleeping, I made sure to activate Arctic Armor, Occupation, Vitality 30, Focus 30, Strider Ball 81, Heal 1, Arctic Armor 5. Morning came. It was around 6 a.m. when I woke up. The bed had an outline of frost from where I was sleeping. I checked my panel to see that Arctic Armor had its proficiency rise to 61. It became slightly thicker and now looked like there was almost an armor of ice all over my body. I felt extremely comfortable sleeping with the skill activated, my body feeling a cooling sensation throughout. I grabbed a quick shower and cleaned up, and then went to grab some breakfast in the dining area. After finishing the food, I checked around the hunter shops in the hotel just to see if the skills I had in mind would be there, but I wasn't so lucky. There were a variety of rank CF skills, but none that fully fit the guidelines I had in mind. I went out and hailed another driver to bring me to the largest awakened center in Outer Bank X. This center was as large as a stadium, with many hunters and normal humans rushing about. It was already packed early morning, with many things being sold or traded. I first went to trade in the cores I did not absorb in one of the shops, and my account soon had an extra $155,000. Even after I absorbed more than 40 cores, the remaining was still enough to bring me this much from just diving into 2 dungeons. This money brought a smile to my face, even though I knew it would soon be gone. Ignoring everything else, I went to the shop that had a huge sign of skill books. There were hundreds of skill books laid behind thick glass with their descriptions written out. On either side of the entrance were 2 hunters who seemed to be rank D or above. I went into the shop and sure enough, there were a few books that fit my criteria. The first skill that fit exactly what I wanted was the rank D skill, Flames of Torment. The skill allowed you to cast a pillar of flame at a maximum distance of 10 meters and would last as long as energy is applied. The skill neared rank C in power but was neglected by many hunters because of its high energy usage characteristic. It fit perfectly with me. With its high damage, the pillar of flames would continue to be concentrated into a line of fire that burns anything in front of me. The next skill that matched what I was looking for, and I actually had enough money to buy, was another rank D skill called Safeguard. This was a very peculiar skill that caused headaches for many tanks. Casting this skill greatly boosted your defense, and even fully absorbed all damage from lower ranking skills. The only downside was its high energy requirement, and the fact that you could not move while this skill was active. Bosses regularly move and attack anything that damages them. If they see their attacks aren't getting through a tank that is standing still, they will simply move to attack other party members that are causing it harm. Tanks who first used this skill caused the death of many spellcasters, as they were too late catching up to the monster after being able to move again. You also never want to be a mage with your flimsy defense to cast this skill and stand still. As soon as your mana runs out, you will be surrounded and Because of all this, a D-rank skill book that normally goes for around $100,000, I was able to buy for $60,000. With the Flames of Torment being $90,000, I had effectively used almost all the money I made the day prior. Now, it was time to go back to the Frozen Wasteland, Chapter 7. Too easy. I called for a ride as soon as I was done, and I was driven to the Frozen Wasteland dungeon in 20 minutes. I still had that same backpack with me, as it should be more than enough to carry cores that drop even if I dive multiple times. I placed my hand on one of the squares in the monolith, and I was back onto the cold floor with rushing wolves once more. Rank E dungeon, 20 floors. Just how fast would it take for me to clear you now that I have rank D skills? I quickly activated Arctic Armor and Safeguard, as I wanted to ascertain just how useful the skills were going to be. I immediately felt like my entire body was rooted to the ground as I couldn't move a single muscle. A transparent layer of energy quickly formed on top of the Arctic armor, and the rushing wolves arrived. The nearest one took a swipe with its huge claws, but I didn't even feel an impact as the wolf was bounced back. The rank D safeguard provided almost absolute defense against lower-ranking monsters and skills. This held true. With both defense skills on, I watched as the wolves rushed at me and tried clawing, biting, and anything else they could think of, but they didn't even touch my clothes. With my confidence slowly coming back, I then cast a skill I was very much looking forward to, Flames of Torment. A blinding ray of flames quickly sprouted in front of me, piercing two of the wolves that were standing opposite me. The flames literally incinerated the area where they touched the monsters, leaving holes in their bodies. The two remaining wolves beside me let out frightened yelps, but I didn't give them any time, and had two condensed fireballs quickly explode on their heads. I deactivated Flames of Torment and Safeguard and could move again, and I went to check out the wolves pierced by the pillar of flames up front. A burnt smell was in the air, as the wolves had almost half of their bodies burnt away. The blood remaining on the other half of their bodies was even bubbling and sizzling. Damn. I kept my amazement inside as I rushed forward, wanting to see more of just how this deadly new skill was. I only kept Arctic Armor active and continued indiscriminately throwing fireballs in front of me so that I could increase its proficiency. Now that I was becoming more familiar with skills, it seems that the closer the proficiency nears 100, the closer the skill becomes able to deal just as much damage as a skill of the next rank. As the F-rank Fireball neared 100 in proficiency, its speed and damage was almost the same as an E-rank offensive skill. I didn't want to completely abandon Fireball, now that I had the rank D skill, Flames of Torment, as it was still very effective when used well. On the next floor, as soon as the wolves began appearing, I initiated Flames of Torment. I made the pillar of fire move horizontally instead of just shooting straight, causing it to literally melt the beasts in half. All 5 rushing wolves, dead from one attack. Haha! I was already falling in love with this skill. Feeling the rush of easily overpowering these monsters, I rushed down the floors even faster. No matter if it was the wolves, the foxes, or the muskox, Flames of Torment did not discriminate and easily burned holes through the beasts with its The feeling of adrenaline slowly faded as I stood by the stairs to the boss once more. I was decent enough to leave in one piece yesterday, but I was going to be sure to take it out even more thoroughly today. I went down the stairs and watched the slumbering mass of a beast get up once more, its bright red eyes trying to pierce through me. Without wasting a beat, a pillar of flames sprouted in front of me like a blooming red flower. The rising bear raised its huge paws to protect its body once more, but this time there was no rest from the flames. A mournful howl was released as the beast's limbs did not last even a second, blasting them apart in an explosion of flesh and bones, continuing onto the body of the bear. A sizzling hole was quickly apparent at the center of the beast's chest, stopping its howls short and causing it to plummet back down to the cold, hard ground. Boom! Controlling my breath, I looked down at the huge mass that was now burning in front of me. Something that gave me fear the day before did not even manage to come a few meters near me. Now I closed my eyes as I relished this feeling, and then went forward to grab the cores and, oh, it wasn't a skill book this time around, but I was quickly able to identify the equipment beside the huge bear. Swift boots increased the speed of the wearer. The item brought a smile to my face, as they rarely dropped and could fetch a high price. The best thing about items is that you can use, reuse, and then sell them without them ever losing their value. I put the boots on, feeling my body get noticeably lighter. I dashed around and confirmed that I could more easily move around. Swiftly clearing the rank E dungeon frozen wasteland, a sense of accomplishment rose as I went towards the green crystal. Before going out though, I took out a few of the vitality and strength cores that I had collected in this run and began absorbing them. Rank cores allowed a hunter to be strengthened up to 50 attribute points. Rank E, cores up to 100. Rank D, up to 150, and on and on. Hunters standing atop the world had their attribute points nearing 300. It didn't matter how many F-ranked cores you consumed. If you wanted to go past 50 on your attribute, you had to absorb rank E cores, with the process repeating for higher ranks. Absorbing rank E cores, while my stats were still under 50, only made them rise a bit faster. I stopped absorbing once vitality and strength both reached 50, and as usual, focus was blank, so all those cores were saved up in the bag. I wrapped everything up and approached the crystal to leave the dungeon. As I touched the crystal and I was transported outside the monolith, I debated whether I should repeat this dungeon or go towards one of the few rank D dungeons in Outer Bank X. I currently held 2 rank D skills, one of which was shredding the monsters in this rank E dungeon as if they were paper. The other, once activated anyways, would make me almost impermeable to any damage below rank D. It provide huge defense when facing monsters of equivalent rank. For time efficiency, it makes a lot more sense to head to a higher ranked dungeon, which will mean more floors, more monsters, and better drops. This time around though, I couldn't be reckless. Since I was already at Frozen Wasteland though, and it took me less than 20 minutes to clear everything, it shouldn't be an issue to repeat this dungeon once or twice. There will be no surprises, and my safety is guaranteed. As well as the fact that there are so few people here, I made up my mind and approached one of the squares of the monolith again, placing my hand and disappearing right after. The second run of Frozen Wasteland today brought me more cores, with the addition of Blade Strike. With a swing of your sword, unleash a deadly strike upon your enemies. This skill wasn't that useful for me, so I threw in the backpack and went in again for the 3rd time today. The 3rd run of Frozen Wasteland gave me a similar amount of cores, this time with a fairly rare skill. Summon Golem summons a single partner to fight on your behalf. Many hunters would buy this skill as soon as it hits the shelf, as it allows casters to effectively have another tank, or the knights and berserkers to have a partner to take the damage for a few seconds. It doesn't really go with my style though, as it would be a slow-moving golem, and I rush through these monsters fairly fast. All that it meant for me was being able to receive more money for a skill for 4th run, only cores, not a single skill book or item. This run bummed me out. 5th run, more cores, and 1 item, Kenshin's sword. As simple as that, it was a sword. I wasn't planning on getting near any monsters, so this would be getting sold too. My backpack was nearly overflowing though, so I will be heading to an Awakened Center to sell the things I've collected so far. I was looking forward to this, as my profits now would easily pass $500,000, meaning I can finally grab myself a rank C skill. Occupation Hunter, Vitality 50. Focus, Skills, F Fireball 96, F Heal, E Arctic Armor 79, D Flames of Torment 31, E. Chapter 8. Offense is the best defense. In an unknown mansion somewhere in Outer Banks. Sir, we noticed an abnormality in one of the dungeons today. Oh, and what happened? The butler observed the disinterested look on the man in front of him and continued. The E-rank dungeon, Frozen Wasteland, has suddenly gone from a risky assessment of moderate to low. Oh, so someone is doing my job for me while I'm busy with the C-rank dungeon? Yes, sir, but the problem is, this change occurred in the span of 2 hours. As soon as the butler finished these words, the eyes of the man he was talking to flashed. Who was it? A team or a ranker that just appeared? We don't know, sir. We're currently checking. Butler. Good, let me know as soon as you find out. Are the girls ready? The man's attention quickly moved to the floor above him, where he could feel some movements. Yes, sir. All newly awakened? Yes, sir. Good. Don't bother me for the next hour. The butler in a clad black suit watched as the man climbed the stairs. His major worry right now was the fact that a dungeon had moved from a moderate risk level to low in a period of 2 hours. This required a dungeon to be cleared by a team of highly skilled hunters, or one very skilled ranker, multiple times in those 2 hours. There was currently only one hunter in Outer Bank X who would be able to bring a specialized team to clear a dungeon at such high speed, and he was looking at him now, heading to perform some activities. The butler bowed towards his benefactor and then turned around to find out just which new hunters had appeared in their city. I was back in the central awakened center of Outer Bank X, currently selling the items I didn't need along with the cores I didn't absorb. Before coming down here, I made sure to absorb the E rank cores until I hit 70 attribute points for vitality and strength. I slowly adapted to the newfound power my body felt as I moved around, exhilarated at my fast progress. The remaining cores, items, and skill books were all sold, and I soon had an extra $674,000 deposited in my account. This was something unbelievable, unless you were a high-ranking hunter. The receptionist handling my order was shocked, as the number of things I was bringing in did not match the rank on my license in any way. I had the plan to be tested and increase my rank today anyways. A jump from F to D wouldn't be too out of this world, right? This was something I was hesitating on, as it had only been 2 days since I was registered as an F-rank hunter. Heads will definitely be turned my way if I jump ranks this quickly. I still didn't feel comfortable enough to parade myself as someone strong when my highest skills currently were rank D and I was just about get a rank C skill. Increasing my rank can wait for now. There's no rush. I was heading towards the skill book shop to buy a skill I had already seen yesterday, but I couldn't buy. Rank C skill. Arcanist Sphere of Protection. Arcane energies protect the caster from all harm, but at a great cost. There were very few rank C skills for sale, as the highest C rank dungeon was regularly being cleared by the only B rank hunter in Outer Bank X with his own team. Over the last few months, many of the C rank skills came from them. Arcanist Sphere of Protection provided absolute defense to any attacks of the same rank thrown your way, along with a high defense against skills of a higher rank. Did not have any movement effect like Safeguard, but required a large amount of energy to be kept active. My heart was about to leap out of my chest as I bought this killer skill. I've heard the proverb that offense is the best defense, but right now, looking at this skill, defense was definitely the best defense. There were other spectacular C-rank offensive skills on display that I wanted to buy, but they would have to wait after I dive into dungeons a few more times and raise my funds once more. The offensive skills would definitely decimate everything on sight if I were to spam them, but they won't guarantee my life. So defense first, offense later. On top of the defensive rank C skill, I also bought rank D, Danger Sense, which quite literally let you sense anything that might take your life a few seconds before it happened. It was an invaluable skill that also had high energy usage to be kept active all the time. Arcanist Sphere of Protection cost me $550,000, with Danger Sense taking away another $100,000. I gave a look at the rank C offensive skills that I couldn't yet buy, and left the Awakened Center to head towards my apartment this time. I was planning on spending the night there and grabbed my laptop along with other essentials. After giving directions to the driver, I relaxed in the back of the car and learned Arcanist Sphere of Protection and Danger Sense. I immediately activated Danger Sense, but nothing felt any different. I'm assuming I would feel something if my life was ever in danger. We arrived at the dilapidated apartment complex in half an hour. I gave the place a glance before heading towards the room I've been living in for the past months. Opening the door, I was shocked to find out there was someone in my apartment. The moment that person turned, a loud ringing sound went off in my head. This is dangerous. The man was decked in clothes that let off a blue light, which means they were all items. He spoke as soon as his eyes landed on my face. Noah Osmont, parents deceased, living alone, has been a registered hunter for about 2 days. The man was flipping through some papers while speaking. I had recognized his face. He was a celebrity in Outer Bank X. My face quickly became stern, and I activated Arcanist's sphere of protection. He looked up and gave a surprised look before continuing. Dungeon diving history includes Ape's Paradise and Frozen Wasteland. Has been observed to enter both dungeons alone and clear them with some of the fastest clear speeds. Now, why would a man like you be hiding your power? He wrapped up the papers and gave me a piercing look. My entire body felt like it was on pins and needles. I took a quick breath and calmed myself down while remembering I had a C-rank defensive skill activated right now and said, I didn't want any trouble the first few days after awakening. Trouble, huh? Well, it always manages to find us. He stared around my apartment before continuing. I won't be here long. I'm a very busy man. I came to offer an olive branch. He walked around my apartment and continued talking in that arrogant tone. The highest dungeon in this beautiful city of ours requires me and a team of others to regularly clear so that a dungeon break does not occur. Looking at your past 2 days' history, and the fact that you can comfortably keep that defensive skill active after all this time, means your power should be upper rank C, even possibly nearing B. He gave a smile as he said that last part. This man was the top ranker in Outer Bank X, B rank hunter, Cohen Anderson. We need more talents like you to keep the safety of this city and its citizens. We have casualties every now and then, and are in need of another powerful hunter to team. The next dungeon dive is 3 days from now. Gather at Soleil's Castle at 10 a.m. Be sure not to miss it. He finished the last few words, looked around some more, and walked out the door without giving me another look. I felt anger quickly boiling up inside me before I squashed it down. How the hell did they find me so fast? I closed the door of the apartment and went towards a chair with a horrible expression on my face. Cohen Anderson, the most powerful hunter in this city and the one at the forefront of the defense against the C-rank dungeon, Soleil's Castle. The dungeon monolith always showed a deep orange hue, showing that it could shine red at any moment and cause a dungeon break. Cohen forms a party to clear this dungeon twice a week. The hunters that form this party always change though, as there are casualties in almost every dive phase. That was how hard a C-rank dungeon was. Even with a B-rank hunter leading the team, there were still casualties. This information was commonplace in the local hunter platforms. New hunters were regularly recruited to help in the defense of the city, but there would be a memoriam at least once a week for a fallen rank C hunter on the team. I wanted to increase my strength slowly before doing what I can to help without the risk of death. But I guess that's out of the window. My anger was kept in check as I recalled his tone that felt more like a command. Arrogance, that was all that I felt from him. Sigh, this was what power could do to you. Cohen was widely known to be arrogant, but he was the strongest hunter in the city and could be relied on to prevent a dungeon break from Soleil's Castle. It looks like I will be visiting a C-rank dungeon faster than I thought, but there was one thing he was wrong about. My power was definitely not upper rank C or nearing B. As soon as I learned the appropriate skill book, with my endless casts, nothing will stand in my way. A ferocious expression rose in my face as old plans were thrown out and new ones formed. Noah, occupation hunter, focus, strength 70, skills, F fireball 96, F heal 10, E arctic armor 79, D flames of torment 31, D safeguard 8, D danger sense 5, C arcanist sphere of protection 2, equipment E swift boots. Chapter 9, Reflection and Planning. I reviewed everything I had been doing so far and looked for what I could change. I was going to keep farming Frozen Wasteland tomorrow, but I would also be heading towards one of the rank D dungeons in the city, Goblin King's Abode. For at least a few rounds, I just learned a C-rank defensive skill that most hunters can't even use because of its high energy requirement. There shouldn't be any surprises that might pop up to endanger my life. Along with the rank D, Flames of Torment, I should be able to clear the 30-floor dungeon without an issue. Another thing was the usage of my skills. If I really can cast endlessly, then I need to use this to my advantage even more. Arcanist's sphere of protection and dangerousness were still active. I sat on my old bed, then closed my eyes, activating both safeguard and Arctic armor too. A few minutes passed and I calmed down some more and realized what I might have missed. Frozen Wasteland wasn't as actively cleared as other E-rank dungeons and had a tint of orange. What would happen when it was cleared multiple times in one day? A change would be very noticeable. Sigh. I looked to my ceiling as I realized how full of mistakes I still am. Today I'll rest, tomorrow I'll start moving for real. The man adorned with rank C items sat in the back of a luxurious car heading back to his manor. He had a distasteful expression on his face as if he had just swallowed a bug. There were very few people he hated in this world as he stood above the masses. Noah, the newly awakened hunter he just visited, landed near the top of the list of the most irksome people. It wasn't whether he was strong or weak, it was his attitude. He looked down on people with such a pathetic attitude, wanting to lay low and evade danger after awakening to a powerful ability. Distasteful. You should use your God-given talents to help the other pathetic masses to live in this world a little longer. The strong ruled the weak in this era, and I do not want a weakling in my city. Either he falls in line or... A phone quickly connected in the car and Cohen spoke. Revise his danger level, make it B. He was able to use a defensive skill that would have taken me a few attacks to destroy, and it remained active the whole time I was talking to him. Find out which skill matches the description and gauge his power. He is most likely a naturally awakened individual with an inherent skill that adds a large amount of focus, allowing him to jump over rankings. There was silence on the other end of the line before a reply came. Yes, sir. He was the only B-rank hunter in Outer Bank X. He held the city's life in his hands. He could do whatever he wanted with nobody batting an eye. The local government could not control him. Nobody else in this city could contend with him. And that is how things will stay. As soon as I got up in the morning, I compiled everything I knew about Cohen Anderson. Besides his unstable attitude, he was the only one in Outer Bank X holding a rank B skill. A few months back, when his team that was made up of rank C hunters took down the boss of Soleil's castle, with half the team wiping, he was lucky enough to receive a rank B skill book from the boss. Bosses rarely drop any skill books or items that are a higher tier than they are, but this chance increases when it is bosses from high-ranking dungeons. A rank C dungeon is filled with hundreds of beasts of that level, along with a huge boss that earns the title of a Titan. These huge bosses are extremely powerful and have the chance of dropping something that is of higher rank than the dungeon itself. Anderson was that lucky. He joined the ranks of B-tiered hunters and took his position at the top of this city. His team never remained the same over the